What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today we start off by breaking down all of the current NBA playoff matchups and look ahead to the Conference Semifinals to predict who we think will come out on top. Next, we discuss the news that All-Pro Safety Earl Thomas has been released by the Baltimore Ravens and debate where we think he will end up next. Finally, we go over some quick-hitting topics around NFL training camps. All that and much more coming your way right now. Nick, how's it going? We are yet another week closer to the start of the NFL season.
It can't come fast enough, honestly. I'm just foaming at the mouth, ready for football. I don't know what to do without it, and I would love when it's in my life. And I mean, right on the top of my mind right now, I just talked to you about it, is fantasy football. Our draft's coming up. I'm putting as much work into it as possible, trying to get ready for it. I always think I know what I'm doing, and then it usually ends up backfiring. So I want to take it a little bit more seriously this year.
To no fault of your own, last year, you had a series of injuries right off the bat.
That's what usually happens. Is I'll draft somebody and they'll be gone the next day, like torn ACL, gone.
You also drafted Antonio Brown in the third round, so
okay, he was on a team. He was an Oakland Raider. I knew he was going to be on a team, whether it was by trade or he was claimed, and he was claimed by the Patriots. Everything that he did.
And how'd that work out?
All right, I can't help that some people, things happened off the field.
Where there's smoke, there's fire. Just remember that.
Listen, the two incidents, the one that happened in Oakland was completely unrelated to what happened in the off-field actions when he was with New England. So it is what it is. I got some good deals out of last year. I'm all set for this year. I'm ready for the championship to come home.
Yeah, for sure.
Put it right behind me.
Oh, I thought you meant home here.
No, right there. No, I'm gonna mount it right on the wall.
3 times in a row, baby. All right, let's get started with everything that we've got going on. We got a lot to get to today. So, first off, this is breaking news. Right as we started the show, we got the alert. Giannis Antetokounmpo named Defensive Player of the Year. I honestly saw this as a pretty much no-brainer. He won it over Anthony Davis and Rudy Gobert, who are great defensive players in their own right, but Giannis was the best defensive player on the best defensive team. I don't think you can give it to anybody else at that point in time. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's much. There's too much competition for this award besides those three, and even then, I think AD would have been the closest, and still. The way it's structured is Giannis is the only person that's really going to do anything on defense for the Bucks, and it's all structured that way. So this award is just going to be given to him unless some other team just gets a big defensive star in the near future. Giannis is just he's a freak when it comes to defense, and his offense just keeps getting stronger, and that's why he's probably going to be named MVP this year for the second year in a row. But as far as defense goes, he is an unbelievable athlete. I think Anthony Davis, if he wasn't on the Lakers or if LeBron wasn't there, he probably would have won this award. I think if you give him enough reps, he'll have a better chance at it. But there's nobody getting in the way of Giannis in Milwaukee, and I think that it's a clear path for him to get that award because the Bucks are gonna be dominant all year. So,
Yeah, I think Giannis, obviously, congratulations to him. He's made such an incredible leap from when he came into the league to where he is now. He joined a very elite group of players to have won the Defensive Player of the Year and Most Valuable Player. He joins, if I can remember correctly, it was Giannis, Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon. I believe there were 2 other players on that list, and that's it. I feel like that's a pretty incredible feat to have. Resume wise, when you're mentioned with those greats, you're doing something right, and I think we have to seriously look at Giannis as being the preliminary favorite to be the face of the league post LeBron James.
Yeah, I don't agree with that completely. I don't think that Giannis is the face of the league. I'd rather much see somebody like Luka or Steph or even Devin Booker be the face of the league. I think those guys are bigger stars just because they're more of a skill position. Giannis is just a big guy. He plays deep. He's not gonna make a lot of flashy plays. He's gonna live in the paint and make your life hell. And he's just great at it. There aren't many Giannis's left. The league is kind of moving away from that type of player, and he's just finding a way to continue to be extremely effective and the focal point of the Milwaukee Bucks offense and defense.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen any player like Giannis, though. We're talking about a 7 foot small forward who can dribble drive the ball any direction. He gets from the 3 point line to the basket in 2 steps. The man is just a physical freak. He dominates anybody that's guarding him, and he's an unstoppable train. I mean, what, like, you can't stop him, you can just try to limit him. I think that's really where we see teams trying to work on Giannis, but they know that he's going to average his 20 to 25 points a night. And then there's nights where he's going to go off. You just have to limit the damage that he does and limit the damage that the rest of the team does. Focus on them for the most part. But we'll get more into that as we talk more about the Bucks themselves. But you had an interesting take, and you said you'd rather see somebody like Luka become the face of the league. I think that's an interesting point because Luka Doncic has been the talk of the town. He has been trending on Twitter for the last 48 hours for everything that he was able to do. Luka, if you guys haven't seen, go watch the highlights of that game. Were absolutely incredible. Talking about game 4 of the series against the Clippers. No Kristaps Porzingis for that game. Luka is coming off 2 days after terrible sprain to his ankle. They weren't even sure if he was going to go. He said if the game was in the morning or in early afternoon, he wouldn't have been able to play. But because of when it took place as a later game, he was able to loosen it up and actually play. Um, and then, hitting the game winning shot in overtime was just incredible. Do you think that the Mavericks with Luka Doncic have a shot to actually upset the Los Angeles Clippers?
Yeah, I think if they're gonna do it, they're gonna need Kristaps Porzingis. As good as great as Luka is right now, I just don't think there's enough weapons around him to aid him in getting past the Clippers. I think that it's a tied series. This looks like it's probably going to go the distance all the way to Game 7, and if you want to make the next 3 games, you need somebody to help you along the way. And Kristaps is the perfect guy for that. He's proven that he is a detriment to the Clippers, and he is the perfect offset to what Luka does. And I think that they're going to need him to get past the Clippers. But without him, I don't see them getting past this first round.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think that the Mavs are a great matchup for the Clippers as far as a fan's excitement is concerned. But for the Clippers, this is not some like the Mavericks have some very tall players, and the Clippers, like the Boston Celtics, play a lot of small ball. They adopted what the Golden State Warriors have done for years now, and they utilize it power forward at center, and they're really just trying to have a couple small forwards and a couple point guards or shooting guards on the floor at all times. So this is a tough matchup for them to say the least. They have just like Milwaukee. Milwaukee's another one. A lot of tall and strong players. It's tough for shorter teams to be able to challenge these teams. So I think this is like the perfect storm for the Mavericks. I don't think though the Mavericks have the power to overcome the Clippers because the games that the Mavericks have won, Paul George has been all but absent. I mean, he is just I don't know where his jump shot is gone, but we need to get an APB out there for it. I mean, we really need to call the police and say, listen, y'all need to send a search party. We need to get the government involved because that man can't hit a shot if his life depended on it at this point in time. They're calling him playoff P, making fun of him, but
Well, they're not calling him playoff P. He calls himself playoff P, and that's what happened. He
no,
can't
but I'm
make a
saying
shot.
they're making fun of him.
Oh yeah,
Calling, calling him that.
no, I'll call him playoff P too. You should mock him. If you're gonna make him a statement like that before the playoffs and say I'm about to go off and you're like the worst player in the playoffs, then yeah, you deserve to get mocked.
It's a tough road, but the problem is that as soon as he finds that stroke, and the greats always do, Paul George being one of the great players in our game today, he's going to find his stroke, and that also doesn't minimize what he's able to do on the defensive side of the ball. So he's got a lot in there that still has yet to be unleashed completely. I don't think that the Clippers should have too much of a hard time as long as Paul George can figure it out and come back to form.
Yeah, I think he might figure it out. I never know with Paul George. Ever since he broke his leg in the Olympics, was it like 4 years ago? I just don't think he's been the same player, and I just he's been extremely inconsistent. He spent time last year with the Rockets, and now he's moved on to the Clippers, and he has not had like a consistent season where he's proven he can be the guy. And we always thought he could be the secure number two behind Kawhi, but he hasn't really shown that. And he's been injury prone this season, so is Kawhi. And now you got them both on the court, but it really only looks like Kawhi is out there. So I just don't. I don't know where if they'll be able to keep it up, or if Kawhi is going to be able to carry this team much further.
Yeah, I just want to correct you. You said he was with the Rockets. He was with the Thunder last year, but
That's right.
yeah, he Paul George. I'm not worried about him being able to figure it out. If it was somebody like, Lou Williams or somebody like Montrezl Harrell who wasn't defending well, or something else, I might start to worry. But Paul George finding his shot, I'm not going to worry too much. I think that he's going to get in the gym, he's going to get right, and before this series is over, we're going to actually see the playoff P that he was referring to, not everybody else that's mocking him.
But even if he has one good game, are we going to say, oh, he's back? Like, no, I think he has to prove himself over probably 3 games in a row. He needs a consistent string of games to show that he's back into form that the Clippers can now trust him again.
He doesn't need 3 games. He needs 2 because the series is tied
No,
2.
but if they want to actually do something in this playoffs, then he needs to continue beyond this first round. Like,
Right, but what I'm saying is that because the Mavericks are such a threat to them because of the size and shooting ability that they have and that they possess, he needs to get through this series, and the coast will be clear.
I don't agree with that. I think that it still extends beyond this. But as far as this goes, he doesn't even need to show up completely. He needs to just be able to hit, a quarter of his shots, and they'll be fine. These games have been coming down to a couple points, and it's the couple points that he should be getting them. So I think, he doesn't have to be an all-star player every single game. He just needs to be an average player, and he's not. He's well below average right now.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head. He's trying to do too much, right? He's trying to become the guy that he talked about. He's trying to become the superstar that we know him to be when he doesn't need to force it. He just needs to let the game come to him. I think if he lets his game happen, I think he'll be fine. But the moment he starts to overextend himself is what we're seeing now, and he's not truly getting his game up to where it should be.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's a lot of certain things. Kristaps Porzingis has already been ruled out for tomorrow's game, so that already goes into the Clippers' favor. Obviously, the Mavericks won without him, but it had to go to a game-winning shot in overtime. And now that the Clippers have had a couple days since that game, and they have some extra time to realize that Kristaps isn't playing, I think they're going to come out swinging hard and try to dominate this Mavericks team and get the lead back in their favor. Um, so, you know, I, we had a small debate, and I said we should pause it because I wanted to have it on here. You told me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you told me that you think Luka Doncic is the best player in the NBA.
No, I said he's the best point guard in the NBA.
Okay.
I think he's better than Steph.
Okay. I don't think he's better than Steph, and I don't even think he's better than Damian Lillard.
You're
Um,
ridiculous.
how am I ridiculous? Damian Lillard is consistently putting up 40 points or more in the
In the
playoffs.
in the bubble.
No, he was doing it all regular season. It's because he's in Portland and nobody talks about them. That's the problem. And he's also got no help. Yusuf Nurkic, gone. Don't know where he is. Yeah, CJ McCollum, he's playing support role right now. I don't know where his game is at all that much, but see, Damian Lillard's doing his own damn thing. And when you're talking about Luka being the best point guard, we haven't seen Steph in almost a year at this point. So you're taking what you've seen from Luka recently, and it's overshadowing your judgment what Steph Curry is able to do on a basketball
I mean,
court.
it's not like we've had a ton of Luka. It's been a year and a half, pretty much, of seeing what he can do, and he's a budding star. He was doing this pre NBA. He was doing this all throughout Spain, and I think that he's just gonna continue on this terrorizing path to be the best point guard in the league. And I already think he's there. I think that we'll have to see how Steph comes back, and these two haven't really played a full season together. So I think next year we're really going to see that Luka is matured into this elite point guard that is now the best in the league. And
I think he's a top 5 point guard for sure, but I don't think he's the best. And I also
I want
don't
to
think
see
what
no, I want to see Damian Lillard do what Luka's doing against the Clippers. I don't think he could do it. I don't. There, he's just not as
he's
good.
doing it now against the Lakers, which is an even tougher task.
I mean, it's a 3-1 series. I don't know what he's doing, but
He's doing it all himself. He
you
didn't
know,
have a Kristaps
I
Porzingis to help him out in three games. He
right, but
is
he has
doing it
Yusuf
all by
Nurkic.
himself. How many back-to-back 60-point games has Luka Doncic had?
What does it matter? How many wins has it resulted in? How many significant wins has it resulted in? Not
He's doing everything he can. One player does not a team make, and there's nothing
right, but
more
without
that Damian Lillard can do when he's almost averaging a triple-double, scoring 50, 60 points a game, and he's leaving it all out on the floor, and everybody you're just discounting him because they don't get the hype that everybody else does.
right, but without Kristaps Porzingis, who else does Luka really have? He doesn't have many other people around him to help out. He's doing a lot of it by
It
himself.
doesn't matter. You said besides Kristaps, they don't even have a player like that in Portland. So you can't even say besides Kristaps because they don't have that besides guy. CJ McCollum ain't it. Yusuf Nurkic ain't it.
CJ McCollum, you have to give him a little bit more credit. Without
He's a
CJ
support player.
Without CJ McCollum, they're not beating the Grizzlies in the game they played to decide who gets the 8th seed.
He had one good game. And what did you just say about Paul George? He needs to have 3, but CJ McCollum, we can say is
we're not comparing CJ McCollum and Paul George.
But your arguments are changing per player, and that doesn't work.
No,
if you're going to say a player's good, then they need to show it consistently. You're saying that CJ McCollum isn't a support player because he had one good game.
We're talking about Luka Doncic and Damian Lillard, all right? Like what they're just taking what those two guys can do. I'm taking Luka 9 out of 10 times, probably 10 out of 10 times. In that, if I just don't think that
You're
Damian
also
Lillard,
discounting. You're also discounting Kyrie Irving. You're discounting.
a
Uh,
facilitator and not a shooter, okay.
you're telling me that Kyrie
Oh,
Irving can't shoot the ball
he can drive to the basket, have fun. He's gonna shoot like 4 from 10 from the 3 point line.
40% from three. That's literally what
You
you strive
okay,
for.
okay, and Luka's gonna hit 8 out of 10 every single time.
He had 3 air balls. What are you talking
Three
about?
air balls, but he went off in overtime. I like.
He went off in overtime, but he had 3 air balls prior to that, so that makes it okay.
Yeah, does he have to be perfect? No.
So does Kyrie have to be perfect?
No, I'm not,
This is what I'm
no.
saying. You are so blinded by the starlight of Luka right now and all the hype that he is getting that you are forgetting about what Steph Curry can do, what Kyrie Irving can do. You don't Damian
Steph.
Lillard does not get the star power that Luka gets.
So Steph, who's surrounded by all that talent, okay. James Harden, who has Russell Westbrook, okay. Kyrie, who has been injured for what, a year and a half now. Uh,
You're
and
talking about right now. I'm talking about they as players overall they are better.
right, but you're taking what, 6 years of people's careers to Luka's year and a half in the league. Like
He also was leading professional teams in Spain to championships at age 18. So he's been playing professional. You have to give him more credit than a year and a half. He's been playing professional
right in
since he was
Spain,
16 years old.
not with the
Doesn't
best of the
matter.
best.
That's a professional basketball league.
It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different.
I I don't. There is no shot that Luka is the best player, is the best point guard in the league right now. Can he be? 100%. 100%. I think he could even be the best we've ever seen. I think he could challenge Magic Johnson. Is he right now? No shot. You're bugging. You're bugging. There's no shot.
I
That's a straight cap. I don't. Nah. Nah. um. Ah. Whew, a little heated. Speaking of heat, the Heat and the Bucks. So we talked a little bit about the Bucks and everything, but the Heat and the Bucks are playing in the next round. Um, it's gonna be one hell of a series. They split the regular season series 4-2. Um, Most of the games were close. The only one that wasn't was when Jimmy Butler was out. That was like a 30-point win for the Bucks. But I think, for me personally, I think the Miami Heat could be the kryptonite to the Milwaukee Bucks. They do everything that Milwaukee struggles against. They can shoot from the perimeter, they can drive to the basket, they completely run up and down the floor consistently. Um, and they spread these big guys out, where Brook Lopez and Robin Lopez, they can't sit down low and be rim protectors. They're gonna put Giannis on skates, and they have so many different playmakers between Bam Adebayo and Tyler Harrow and Jimmy Butler. I mean, just to list off some of the names, they can do so much. I think that Miami can truly challenge the Bucks and possibly play upset to the number one seed.
Yeah, I think it's mainly going to ride on if Jimmy Butler can stay healthy. If he can stay out there, I think the only game we saw between these two in the bubble, it was a close game, but that was without Jimmy Butler. And I think if they have Jimmy Butler, he'll be the guy to put them over the edge. So I think he's the missing piece that they need, and they need him to be able to play all 7 games of the series if they want a chance at beating the Bucks. I just don't think. I love the talent that the Heat have. I think they're gonna be something special one day, but without Jimmy Butler there to bring everything together, I don't see it
He's
happening.
there.
Right, but
Jimmy Butler's there.
he's dealing with an injury, and I'm saying if he continues to get more injured and can't go for a game or two, that could be the nail in the coffin for the Miami Heat.
I understand that, and like I said, I did preface it by saying that the one blowout was when Jimmy Butler was absent, because I think Jimmy Butler is one of the only players in the NBA that can stand 1v1 with Giannis and actually defend him without having to foul, or with, can actually go toe to toe with him defensively. Um, with that being said, it's a tall task for sure. I understand that 100%. Um, but I don't think it's impossible, and I don't even think it's impractical. I think it's a definite possibility that the Miami Heat could play upset to the Milwaukee Bucks. Just it's like the Mavericks. It's just how they match up physically and how the games match up against each other. I think these aspects truly have to come into play, unless you see Giannis, go off for 50 plus points, and then, you know, even then, I don't know if he has the shooting around him to actually get it there. I mean, Dante DiVincenzo is one player, but outside of that, I don't know who else is going to be able to help them out all that much.
Yeah, I think that it's gonna be a close series in the beginning, but I think the Bucks usually they tend to find a way to get through, and I think that's what they're gonna rely on. They're gonna just rely on their coaching to figure out a game plan throughout the series. I could see the Heat winning a game or two, but I definitely don't see them winning the entire series.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think this will be one of the series for everybody, whether you like either of these teams or not. I think this is one of those series where you truly need to pay attention, and need to watch it for sure. But I want to jump over to the next series that's going to happen in the East, and that would be our Celtics, right? Go Celtics. Celtics versus Raptors. So that's an incredible series. It seems like every year we're seeing these two play in the playoffs. But Kyle Lowry diagnosed with an ankle sprain. He's going to be a game time decision. That's all the way to Thursday. So if he's going to be a game time decision on Thursday, it's not looking very likely that he might play. Or shows that it's also pretty serious, right? Um, Gordon Hayward still out with his grade 3 ankle sprain. Which loss do you think is bigger, Kyle Lowry or Gordon Hayward?
I think the bigger loss is Kyle Lowry. I think he means more to the Raptors. I think we've seen the Celtics in the last two games of the sweep against the Sixers. We saw them play extremely well together. I thought they actually played better without Gordon Hayward than they did with him. But Gordon Hayward, his numbers prove it that when he's in the game, he's scoring extremely proficiently, and I think that he definitely aids to a very smoother ride to a victory than without him. But I think that when it comes to cohesion, the Celtics definitely seem to play better without him, even though they're not getting as much production if they actually had him on the court. And I think that's where the Raptors are going to fall apart. Is Kyle Lowry has stepped up this year. He's become a huge factor for the Raptors and their success without Kawhi Leonard. And I think without him, they're gonna start to suffer a little bit. So I think that Kyle Lowry is definitely the bigger loss in the series.
I agree with you. I think Kyle Lowry is the bigger of the two losses. Gordon Hayward's absence is also pretty well noted. He's one of the best defensive players on the Celtics roster, and in fact, he's a great shooter. He's a great facilitator. He can do anything you ask of him on the offensive side of the ball, and he's willing to guard whoever you want on the defensive side of the ball. So I think he's a major loss. Obviously, he's a starter, so his loss is going to be felt. But having a player like Shemi Ojale step up, or Marcus Smart, who usually enters the fray in the starting lineup for one when a player goes down, I think this is going to be a huge opportunity for them to show out and show up. But the thing is with Gordon Hayward, I think that he'll be back sooner than they were saying. I think they said 4 weeks from when he first got injured. I think that's just I think that's being overly cautious with his ankle. Just and again, it is the same ankle that he had the horrific injury with. So I'm sure they want to be a little cautious. But for an ankle sprain, I mean, there's no reason that it should be 2, 3 weeks tops before he's back playing and starting for the Celtics.
I think when it comes to Gordon Hayward, you definitely want to take it cautious with him. He's had a lot of injuries over the last few years, and it seems that he's just hasn't been a very durable player for the Celtics. So you want to make sure that he can go the rest of the way if the team's still there. So you'd rather him wait a couple more games and be a lot more durable than rush him back and have him get re-injured, and that possibly he might even be worse off coming into next season as well. You don't know what kind of irreparable damages you're going to have if you rush a player back, and we've seen that in other sports happens all the time where you bring somebody back from a knee injury or an ankle injury and they re-injure that, and it just becomes even more severe and harder for that player to recover from.
Yeah, again with an ankle sprain, I think it's a little different. They did perform an MRI. There wasn't anything too severe. They didn't show anything structurally wrong with the ankle. Everything is still holding up from his surgeries and all his rehab and everything. So I don't think there's much to worry about at that point. You just want to make sure that he has full feeling in his foot and ankle so that he doesn't have a propensity to roll it again. And I think you want to make sure that he feels comfortable going, being able to run and gun and slash down to the basket. I mean that, pre horrific injury, was it 2, 3 years ago now? 2 years
I
ago?
think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah. He was one of the best slashers in the game. I mean, he was and obviously, that's how he got hurt, was slashing to the basket. He was going up for an alley oop, which was over his head. He came down and just, you know, the rest is history. Um, so I understand, and a lot of it is mental. He needs to get it. I've seen it in his game. He needs to get out of his head and stop. I think he worries too much about the ankle. He needs to go out there and play his game of basketball. It seems like he's a little hesitant. Slashing to the basket, or when it comes to dribble driving. It seems like he's become more of a facilitator because he's a little nervous about driving into traffic. And again, as a human, I understand it, but as a professional basketball player, I mean, if that's what you made your bread and butter on, I think that's what you need to utilize to your advantage.
Yeah, it tends to happen to some of the best, and it could be a real career killer for them. And I would love to see the Gordon Hayward pre leg injury, but I highly doubt that player is ever coming back. And I don't mind the player that Gordon Hayward has turned into. I think he's still a very consistent player and has a lot of value. But I agree with you. I think he is a little too much in his head, and if he wants to play as a lot more consistent, he needs to just forget about it and just focus on playing ball.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, Gordon Hayward obviously injured his ankle against the 76ers, and it didn't matter because the Celtics didn't need Gordon Hayward to sweep the 76ers. Obviously, the Sixers are without Ben Simmons, but they still had Tobias Harris. They had Al Horford, former Celtic. Um, and obviously, their big star, Joel Embiid, still there. Uh, Josh Richardson, great point guard, and Shake Milton, who was a really profound rookie that they had this year. So, all in all, not bad of a team, but they got swept out of the playoffs. That's not good, to say the least. And it seems like ownership felt the same way because the 76ers have officially fired head coach Brett Brown. He will no longer be part of the 76ers. Do you think that this is the only thing that the 76ers should do? Should they continue firing all of, the front office? Do they need to blow up their superstars? Like, where do you see them going next?
No, I think it's a combination of all of it. I think the start was getting rid of Brent Brown, but I think you need to restructure the front office, get rid of the GM. You need to get somebody in there who's going to make the tough calls, such as trading Joel Embiid or trading Ben Simmons, to get somebody who's going to complement them better. Because although over the last couple of years they have been pretty dominant on the floor together, this year they on the floor together, they have been absolutely terrible. And I think that it's in part due to everything. I think the culture change has had a severe effect on them, and it all starts with the GM bringing in players like Al Horford, who have had a bad impact on Joel Embiid. It seems like those two just don't get along, and they can't coexist. And Al Horford is being turned into this other player, and they need to have better surrounding talent that isn't trying to steal spotlight away from them, that know their role. You can't get too many big names on one court because in the NBA it's all ego. And if you don't get the ball, then you're gonna get upset, if or you're gonna try to hold on to the ball as much as possible, and it's just gonna go haywire for you. And that's what we saw. Al Horford was trying to do too much. Joel Embiid was trying to do too much. Ben Simmons was trying to do too much, and they're all trying to do too much at the same time, and it's just a mess waiting to happen. So I think you need to continue to make the changes, get rid of the GM and whoever the new GM is. Try to shop Joel Embiid, try to shop Ben Simmons. You got to get one of them out of there, and you can get another all-star player or get a top 5 pick in the draft probably. And I think this is the draft where you want to have as much draft capital as possible because there's plenty of talent here that could be your future.
Yeah, for sure. When we first brought this topic up, two thoughts came to mind for me. The first one is, uh, I don't believe Brett Brown should have been the first casualty or possibly even a casualty of what's going on here. I think that we as fans have lost the ability to hold players accountable. I don't think that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, and Al Horford are being given the accountability that they need to hold, because the fact remains that the 76ers front office took was it $109 million, gave it to Al Horford to get him away from Boston. They also gave 180 million and gave it to Tobias Harris to fill the hole that was left by um, Jimmy Butler going to Miami. So you have these players that are supposed to fill roles, that they're supposed to, bolster the team, and they ended up performing worse than where they started. And the other thought I had was, uh, we had Jimmy Butler and we had JJ Redick, who both left the 76ers and talked about how toxic that locker room is, how bad the entire aura of the 76ers is. And they say it's from top down. So when I hear top down, I don't think GM, I think ownership. I think ownership needs a whole complete restructure. I think the GM needs to go. Maybe Brett Brown was one of those pieces, needs to go. But I'd also think, just like you, that Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons need to be broken up. I don't think that they can coexist. I don't think that their games complement each other at all. They basically do the same thing. Joel Embiid isn't a very consistent 3-point shooter. He can hit the shot just fine, but he's not consistent. I believe he shoots just under 30% from three. I could be mistaken. That's a little low. And it's not enough to space the floor with Ben Simmons, who has a very lacking jump shot. I mean, you talk about Paul George's at this point in time. Where's Ben Simmons' jump shot since he entered the league? It's pretty remarkable that he can't shoot the ball. And then we also take a look at Markelle Fultz, who is thriving in Orlando with the Magic. And nobody saw that coming. But as soon as he hit the 76ers, it was all downhill. It looked like he was going to be a bust. People called him a bust. People labeled him as, just a wash, and that, he wasn't able to keep up with the NBA coming out of Washington. Um, and it seems like Philadelphia is the consistent outlier with all of these issues. And I think that we need to truly think about breaking up the two superstars and a whole restructure from the top down.
kind of makes you think, what would it be like if Tatum actually was drafted by the Sixers?
I mean, that is one of the greatest deals that nobody talks about. The fact that the Celtics were able to finesse the 76ers into selecting Markelle Fultz, right? They select Markelle Fultz. The Celtics get the third overall pick, which they take Jason Tatum, and they get another first round pick from Philadelphia on top of it. I mean, that is one of the biggest finesse moves I've ever seen from management. And I mean, Trader Danny doing his thing, always, try scheming something. He's like the bridge troll. He's always getting you one way or another. And he got the Sixers, just like he got the Nets. Was it 5 or 6 years ago now? Um, he's making his rounds around the league. That's for damn sure.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot that needs to be done. Um, Another team that everybody wants to break up, and we talked a little bit about, but the uh, Portland Trailblazers. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. Um, Damian Lillard has been ruled out for tomorrow's Game 5 against the Lakers with a right knee sprain. Portland's already down in the series 3-1. Nick, quickly, do you think the Trailblazers have any chance to hold off the Lakers and force a Game 6?
No, I don't think so. I think it's too late, and I think the Lakers are starting to find their groove. I think they're finally turning the team we thought they were, and it only took some time. They had 8 games in the regular season, in the bubble, and now we're what, 14? No, not even 11 games into the season, 12 games into the season.
Yeah.
So it only took some time for them to find their groove, and I think that this is the Lakers that we thought we were going to get in the bubble, and we're finally getting them now. So I think it's going to be tough for anybody coming through the West to make their way through the Lakers at this point. I think the Lakers are about to catch on fire, and I really don't see many teams putting up a fight against them.
It's interesting. I think the Lakers will easily win this game without Damian Lillard. Obviously, one of the best players, top 10 player in the NBA, in my opinion. He consistently leads his team to 50 to 60 points, especially in the playoffs. I don't see where that production's going to be filled on the rest of the
Yeah,
team,
it's not.
unless
It's
CJ
just not.
McCollum's going off for 40 and then Yusuf Nurkic gets another 35 and I really don't see where all that production is going to be coming from. So I think this is the end of the road for the Trailblazers. But the one thing that concerns me about the Lakers is their depth. I still don't see the depth in that roster for them to be able to truly contend with the likes of Denver, the Clippers.
If
You know,
Den, I mean, at this point, it looks like the Jazz are going to be the team that makes it out of that series.
Even Utah. I think Utah can definitely hold them. Hold them
I,
to
I think a
a
lot
tough
of the teams
series.
in the West struggle with depth issues, so it's not just the Lakers. I don't think they're going to have to face too many teams that are extremely deep past their first team. So it's not too big of a worry for me.
Well, I'm not too sure. I think the Clippers are one of the deepest teams in the league. So I think that if that's what it comes down to, if it comes to Lakers Clippers, we're truly going to see
Yeah,
the
but we're
bench
also talking about
get
a Clippers
tested.
team that can't get past the Mavericks right now.
But again, as we talked about in the opener, I think that has a lot to do with the fact that the Mavericks size and mobility and ability to spread the floor, everybody can shoot from their center on down. Everybody can shoot a three. So it's tough for the Clippers because they can't play their small ball type of game that they like to play.
Yeah, and who there really isn't many teams with that have the size like the Lakers. I mean, you're talking about their 3, 4, 5. That's extremely big, and I think that it's going to be tough for the
Well,
Clippers.
Kawhi's going to be one on one with LeBron, and I think Paul George will be one on one with Anthony Davis.
That's
And
a
then there,
huge difference though in size.
yeah,
It's
size for
not.
sure, but
There's no way it's
you're talking
apples to
about Paul
apples.
George, who's a top defensive player in the league. We'll get to that when the time comes. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But the fact remains that the Lakers will easily force a game six. Will easily close the series out, and the Blazers won't be able to get to game 6. Um, so I think that's it for the NBA that we have. I do want to move on. We have some quick topics in the NFL. Not a whole hell of a lot of news, some injuries and things to go up to update you all with. The first and the biggest news, former All-Pro safety Earl Thomas released by the Ravens after his second fight with a teammate in the last 2 years. This also comes after, he's had multiple blown assignments in games and in practice. He's been late to meetings. Information has come out left and right from the team. Their in-house players council has already had to meet with him, and they talked about how he wasn't a good leader and he wasn't a good fit for their team. I think a lot of this stems from the fact that his play style um, doesn't coincide with what the Ravens are doing. The Ravens like to play a lot of cover two and a lot of cover four, right? They like to have two safeties over the top. Earl Thomas is like an Ed Reed type. He likes to do his own thing, but he loves to stay in the middle of the field in a cover three type of defense where he can roam the top of the field and the middle of the field, and he can play center fielder and go after deep balls, but also come crashing in the box on run plays and be assertive that way. So I don't think he fit the Ravens scheme, and I think that a lot of these things came from a lot of their frustrations came from his ability to not conform to their scheme, and then it boiled over to last year, his fight with Brandon Williams, the nose tackle. This year, his fellow safety. How often do you see players on the same side of the ball fighting each other? I've seen scuffles in practice before. I've seen it, I've seen fights, but it's usually, a corner and a wide receiver, or a defensive end and a tackle or somebody like that, right? Never have I seen two defensive player, let alone two safeties, fight each other on the field at practice.
No, it doesn't happen that much, and this is consistent behavior by Earl Thomas. I used to be a fan of Earl Thomas, and I really, I don't find myself to be one anymore. I just don't, I don't support, I don't support players who don't buy into the team culture. And I was fine with it when he was upset with what was going on in Seattle. The team, like the Legion of Boom, was kind of falling apart by then. He was just upset with the entire team, and we all saw when he flipped off the team while he's being carted off. And then he went to Baltimore, and like you said, last year he had a fight with a defensive player. This year again, he's just not the player they thought they were buying into. He really is like a cancer in the locker room. That's just not the type of player you want around yourself. And I can't really find a good fit for him in the NFL right now. And I know there's big talk about him going to the Cowboys, and the talks, or the relationships he has with Jerry Jones. But you know what? The Cowboys seemed like they're about to strike gold this season, and I feel like he is the Earl Thomas is the worst piece you could possibly add to this puzzle. He may add some depth at the safety position, and be a decent safety for you, but what he's going to do off the field, it's just not. I don't think it's a good fit, and you're going to throw that on a brand new coach with the team, Mike McCarthy. I don't see it working out. It just doesn't make much sense. And when I try to think of where he could go, the Bucks or the Saints or some other team that could use a free safety like Earl Thomas, I just I don't think is a good fit. I really don't.
I like the Cowboys as a fit for Earl Thomas, but I have three major possibilities where I think he could end up. Dallas is the number one and obvious choice. There was a report earlier by Ian Rappaport that said the Cowboys were not interested. Jerry Jones came out and said himself that that is absolutely not true, and that Ian Rappaport needed to check his sources, which is a very strong statement from the owner himself. That's not somebody you want to be pissing off. And so Ian Rappaport, who's rarely wrong, by the way, I love Ian Rappaport. I think he's very credible. Um, I think that was a misstep on whoever was feeding him information. Um, San Francisco is another one. Not that they need him necessarily, but to pair him up with Richard Sherman. He can get back at Seattle by signing over there. I think that scheme wise, they run a lot of cover three. They also run a lot of man to man and single high safety. I think that he could flourish in a system like that. I think he'd do really well there. And the last one, which I think is a far stretch, and I doubt this will happen, but the Buffalo Bills, I think he could really thrive in Buffalo. They don't need him. They have plenty of talent at the safety position and in the defensive backfield as a whole. But I think Earl Thomas could definitely fit in Buffalo in their system as well.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Like you said, the Bills, they have Jordan Poyer and they have Micah Hyde, two of the best
Yep.
safeties in the league. He's not going to be a starter, and I don't think he's going to take a pay cut to go anywhere and to be a backup, or he's not going to get paid. Um, he'll want to get paid too much to be a backup, and so wherever he goes, he'll have to be a starter. And then when in San Francisco, I think you really need to. They're really focused on getting healthy wide receivers in the door. They just lost three of their four top wide receivers, so they need to fill those holes. They're trying to get people in the door as quickly as possible to learn that system. And I think adding a safety like Earl Thomas is the last thing on their mind right now. And that's where I've thought about a lot of these scenarios. I just don't see a good fit. And with everything going on with teams not having a lot of practice time, with COVID going on, maybe Earl Thomas just sits the season out, or maybe he just needs to call it a career at this point. He just made 20 something $1 million off of the Ravens for a season's worth of play.
$22 million.
And he has all that money from Seattle. He doesn't need to be in the NFL anymore. I think it might be time for him to hang it up.
I mean, he's a seven-time Pro Bowler. He's I think, two-time All-Pro.
Yeah, he's
He's
probably a
had an
future Hall of
incredible.
Famer.
Possibly, it'll definitely be debated for sure. Especially with how things have gone toward the end of the career.
He's very similar to Eric Weddle, in my opinion.
Yeah, just Eric Weddle was a consummate professional, and he was
I'm
very.
not saying I'm talking about like on the field, not off the field or
I think
practice
on the
situations.
field he's closer to Ed Reed than anybody else. Just the way he plays ball and the way he's a center fielder and he kind of anticipates the plays. That's who I liken him to a lot. And
I think that's
they have if he continues to play, they could have very similar careers. Ed Reed ended with both the Jets and the Houston Texans at the end of his career. So people remember the Baltimore days, but that they don't really remember his time in New York or in Houston.
yeah, I think he's starting to leave a bad taste in people's mouths with all this talk with the fights with the Ravens and his miscues while he was with Seattle. And you got to think these are with two very player friendly coaches, John Harbaugh and Pete Carroll, and I just don't see how you can be such a detriment to your team in a system like that. It just blows my mind.
I think one of the most damning things that I saw come out of all of this is that uh, about 2 days before his fight with Chuck Clark, um, he apparently he was late to a team meeting, uh, and his excuse was he had to get his car washed. So that was, I think, the writing on the wall for the organization to get him the hell out of town.
Yeah.
And now, by him fighting a teammate, they were able to use the same uh, language that Oakland used with Antonio Brown, and they said contract detrimental to the team was the reason that they were able to release him. So that way, they can try to get some of that $10 million for this season back that they currently owe him. So it'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. But right now, there's a lot happening, and it looks like Earl Thomas might be the one left out. I think his best shot right now is the Dallas Cowboys themselves, and I don't, as a uh, obviously the Patriots are my number one team, die hard no matter what. But I love the Cowboys, and I don't know if I'd be happy to see him rocking that blue and white on Sunday. I don't know. The star on his helmet just doesn't seem fitting to me.
Yeah, I think
Um,
there's probably one team we can count out when it comes to signing Earl Thomas, the Arizona Cardinals.
probably, yeah, for sure. I think if he hadn't had some of these missteps, you would have seen other teams try to go after him. I know that he would have been a great fit in New England. The New York Jets definitely could have. This is without if he didn't have the off-field stuff going on and he was just released. I think that there would definitely be some suitors. One of those suitors was could have been the Cleveland Browns, right? Grant Delpit, their rookie safety, looked like an absolute phenom of a player, out for the year with a torn Achilles. Um, it's heartbreaking because he's just getting his career started. He's a young guy. Obviously, the Achilles being a muscle is much easier to come back from than like a torn ACL, which is cartilage or breaking a bone or whatever. So it'll be tough. It'll be a long road back. But Nick, what were your thoughts when you heard this?
Yeah, no, this is devastating. Grant Delpit was my favorite safety coming out of the draft this year. I loved his tape from LSU. I still think he's going to be a stud in the league. I think he's going to be very similar to Derwin James. And I think that we're just going to have to wait a year. It's going to be kind of like trust the process in this aspect. But for now, I think we're going to have to just see what the Browns can do without him. If they have plenty of talent there. Their secondary is very young, but they have experience now in the league. I think they can start to progress and take steps forward, and I think they could still do that without Grant Delpit. And I think they'll be perfectly fine. But just know when he comes back that he's going to play a significant factor for this Cleveland defense.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they have the corners already addressed, and that he was supposed to solidify the back end as their safety, and unfortunately, he won't be able to do that this year. But he's still got a bright future ahead of him. I'm very excited to see what he can do. I think Cleveland, they lose a really good player, somebody that they were counting on, but it's not the end of the world for them. And I think they'll be able to continue moving forward. Um, you mentioned that Earl Thomas, won't be going to Arizona.
No, sir.
Right. Buda Baker has now become the highest paid safety in the NFL history. Um, he signed, excuse me, he signed an extension. I believe it was 4 years, 59 million. I
Yeah,
might,
no, that sounds about right.
yeah. He signed an incredible extension to stay with the team. Um, I, I beg the question: is he worth it? Is he
Is he?
worth the highest paid
It's
safety in NFL history? Because to think about some of the safeties that have come out of this league, and obviously we're in a much
yeah.
escalated
You have
era
to
of the.
put it in perspective.
But we're talking about Jamal Adams. We're talking about.
Well, hold on. We're
Um,
talking about Jamal Adams who hasn't gotten paid yet.
no, I understand that, but we're talking about some of these players that are making that are might be better than him that are significantly, you know,
I
you can name the safety, but I think that there
I think
are
it
better
wasn't Earl
safeties out there.
Earl Thomas was the highest paid safety before him. So now
Yeah, he was.
he takes that spot. And so I think when you look at the safeties, no, he's not the best safety in the NFL. Is he a top 5 safety? Probably. But I think and when you look at the other top 5 safeties, a lot of them haven't been paid yet because they're still 2 3 years into the league. So I think that we need we're gonna see over the next year or two that he becomes the fourth highest paid safety in the league. But I think that Buda Baker he went off last year. He was absolutely amazing. He was just making game changing plays for them, and it was a huge benefit to them. And now they've got even more talent. They swindled the Texans and got DeAndre Hopkins, and I think that's going to play huge dividends for them. Uh, you got Kyler Murray, who's going to take a huge step this year. A lot of people think he's going to take the same step that Lamar Jackson took in his second year. So I think that there's a lot going for this team, and they want to make sure all these young guys stay around. They want to make
And
sure that
look at who Buda Baker's playing next to. That their new rookie, their fresh shiny new toy that they got there.
That's where it's interesting. Does Isaiah Simmons play safety? Does he play linebacker? And he probably plays safety right off the bat because they went out in free agency and got a bunch of linebackers. So I think there's no room for him at the linebacker sport. But he can come down and play in the box. He can play a slot corner. He can play safety. Literally, he can.
And
play
so can Buda Baker. I mean, right. Buda Baker. When you break down his snaps, he played everything from defensive end, outside linebacker, middle linebacker, and safety all last year, and some slot corner, just a little bit. You don't get much more versatile than that to me. I think that is the definition of what you're looking for in a plug and play type of guy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of upside, and I think having Isaiah Simmons and Buda Baker for the next 4 years together, it's going to be huge. And those are great building blocks. Pat Pete's getting up there in age. You're probably not going to be able to stick around much more than a couple more years. So you're going to have to start rebuilding that secondary around somebody. Why not it be Buda Baker and Isaiah Simmons?
Yeah, for sure. I like both of them a lot. It's hard for me to get around the figure. I just confirmed it. It was 4 years, $59 million for his extension. That's a lot of money. But you know what? They got to pay somebody. Might as well be the guy they want to build their the back end of their defense around.
Yeah, so and I think when you
I'm all
look
for it.
And we look at the new CBA, so it's when we take that into account, it's really not that lucrative because they're not going to have to pay Kyler for a few more years, and at that point, the salary cap's going to be a lot higher, and it's going to put this Buda Baker contract more into perspective. And we don't know how it's structured too. It might be front loaded, so they have more room.
That's also assuming we get back to normal because the NFL decided to take $25 million away from teams this year.
And we'll see.
They're adding money next year, and things are all changing all around.
Yeah, I think that keeping him around though, it's a good decision by the by the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that's also staying from last year is that Tyrell Williams will be playing the entire season with a torn labrum once again.
Stupid idiot. I don't know how else to put it.
You're not wrong, right? You're not wrong.
This guy. Did you hear how he heard it though?
No, how do you hear it?
So they were playing. I think it was 7-on-7, no pads, so they were just going light, and he goes for a diving catch and lands on his shoulder. Like I don't know what you're trying to do. Don't be flashy when it doesn't count. Like, what's the point? So and now
it must be something in the water that Gruden's given these guys, man. Because holy shit, they are just there's something completely going on in there. In that you talk about Antonio Brown last year, he hurt his Tyrell Williams hurt his labrum last year. Played the season with it. Now he's going to have to do it again. That's a painful injury to go through the entire season with. Right.
You're right. And if he's injured, and he's going to start taking a backseat to Henry Ruggs, Braylon Edwards, a lot of these young guys, they got a lot of young rookie talent. And I think that they're going to start taking over, and Tyrell Williams might end up being a backup player for them, playing in the third or fourth slot.
Yeah, I think it's it's going to be very tough. They have a lot of really good talent on their roster, and I think you meant Brian Edwards, just so you know. Braylon Edwards is well retired, sitting at home, comfortably relaxing.
Similar names. I'm not the best with names. I think we've come to that conclusion by now.
That's for sure. I think the last bit of news that we had, just something to end the night with, the ex-Seahawk player who was caught for sneaking a woman into his hotel or trying to at least. Uh, Obviously was cut. We talked about that recently. He did apologize publicly for his misstep, and at this point in time, it's we don't know if he'll be back on the team, but at least he apologized, right?
I mean, yeah, I read the apology. I thought it was very sincere. I thought it was very well written. So he seems like a semi-smart guy. I mean, he's clearly somewhat stupid for what he did.
Well, he was thinking with the wrong head. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
like
no, I
he
know,
was.
I got you, but you're an undrafted free agent or an undrafted rookie, so I think you have to be on your best P's and Q's if you want to make that team, and especially the Seahawks, which seem to get deeper and deeper as they keep acquiring more people. So I think that you really need to watch what you do, and this was the one of the dumbest things you could possibly do, especially in the circumstances we're living in.
Yeah, for sure.
But
It was a tough way to go out. You're trying to make it in the NFL, and unfortunately, he threw it away because he couldn't help his urges or whatever the case was. But
he'll probably end up like my buddy Max Roshkoff over in the UFC, out of a job and never never getting back.
it sounds about right.
That's just the way it is. It's business.
I heard The Rock was calling, and he was looking for somebody like that to join the
Hey,
XFL.
the XFL will be up and running next year, and I'm sure he'll get another shot that way. So
Yeah,
we'll see if he's worth another shot.
yeah, for sure. All right, I think that's gonna do it all for this week. Greatly appreciate everybody who got to the end of the video. Make sure to hit the like button, comment, subscribe. We greatly appreciate anything that you can do to help support our channel. Just watching and hanging out with us is always fun for us. This is what we love to do. If you'd like to see us talk about anything else in the next week or whatever, make sure to comment on the video. Let us know. We're always trying to reach out. We talk to people on Twitter. Make sure to check in the description for our socials, and everything will be right there for you. And with that being said, I hope you all have a great week. We're gonna check back in with you, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
See you.